Hey, what's up, everyone? Today on the Price Sell Paint podcast, we got a chance to talk with Chris Kiefer from Boolean Automation Review. Chris is an expert with automation in the painting industry, and he has a very unique set of experiences and skills that really lend himself to being an authority figure in this area. I got a chance to talk with him about some of his best tricks and tips for us as painting contractors to run more efficient businesses, be better using our time when we're doing sales, and overall just start to reduce that redundancy that happens in all of our businesses. I'm excited. It was a great conversation, so hope you get some value out of it.
Welcome to Price Sell Paint, the go-to podcast for painting contractors and sales professionals in the painting industry. Hosted by industry experts John Bryant and Michael Murray. This podcast is proudly powered by PaintScout, your partner in painting success.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Price Sell Paint podcast. I'm John. We're with Chris Kiefer today. I'm excited to chat with you, Chris. It is about automation in the paint industry, and I love this topic. So much fun. I know you do too. So this is going to be great. Michael's not joining us, so this is going to be way more fun than usual. So just keep that in mind. But Chris, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you so much, John. My first question for you is, why are you so serious?
Oh, man, I'm not serious, Chris. This is the thing. You've met me in person. It's just that, the camera and the mic, everything gets ahead of me. And then I'm like, oh, I better be professional.
I just had to bring that up because we were talking right before. I'm like, no, I feel John's a funny guy. Like we've been at conferences. I don't know if you're going to say it's one of your biggest insecurities is how on your podcast, that like my seriousness on podcasting. But
I mean, we've all got these alternate personas, right? You're like, oh, this is me when I'm this person. This is me when I'm that person. And it's hard to break out of that. When you meet like a friend from junior high or something, you're like, why am I now junior high version of Chris?
Yeah.
Right?
If someone doesn't think they have different versions of themselves, if you can remember, I feel like it's changed with mobile phones, but you and I can remember that like my mom or my sister or whatever, our landline would ring and they'd be like, shut up. Why? Just like screaming. And they're like, hello, this is Mary. And it's like, what the, like, that was so different. Like you just literally snapped and became a totally different person,
Absolutely. So this happens, but
yes.
I've been told to do better. So I'm going to do better. I'm going to bring the real version, but dude, I'm excited to chat with you today. And maybe we can just start with, hey, just the quick, 3-minute overview of what got you here and into this position you're in today.
So this is kind of an interesting, I haven't ever explained it this way before, but Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs, he had a video like 10 years ago-ish that was called like, Don't Pursue Your Passion. Have you seen this?
I've seen that.
It's a great,
yeah.
You should look, for anyone that's listening and hasn't seen this, look it up. It's and I feel like it's even more applicable in the painting world potentially, because I think a lot of these trade jobs, they're like becoming more popular or in stream, but they're not like, everyone's like, oh, I want to be a lawyer or a doctor or a firefighter or like some, courageous thing. And people, or like a singer, let's do like the popular ones, an actor, a singer, an entrepreneur, a YouTuber, like that's like what everybody is passionate about theoretically. And so essentially Mike Rowe says, just follow the opportunities that are in front of you and then take them all very seriously and invest yourself and your energy to becoming the best at whatever the thing is that you are, that's presented to you. And it's not like, I don't want to pretend like I saw that 10 years ago and was like, I'm following that, but I have I guess, accidentally done that, I would say, and maybe subconsciously there was some intentionality there. But I will say that my, like the short story is I was growing up, I loved Legos and Connects and just like engineering, stereotypical engineering toys, you could say. So everyone was like, "Ooh, you're going to be an engineer. You're going to be an engineer. You're going to be an engineer." And, people would come over when I was 12 building a Connects tower and they're like, "Oh my gosh, your son, he's going to be an engineer." And you just hear that enough. So when college came, it's like, "What are you going to do?" I'm like, well, I know I like basketball and apparently I'm an engineer because that's what everyone's told me. So I'm going to go to engineering school and I got an engineering degree and I tried it out in the real world for 6 months, hated it, which is another great piece of advice depending on the age of people listening. Like if you're thinking of changing jobs or going to a different career, like the idea of like, maybe you should job shadow for, I don't know, a day or better yet, like 3 months, before deciding to commit 4 years of your life in college to doing that thing. I never did that. I just was like, yep. And then I went down and I heard they made a lot of money. And so I got into my real job, hated it. It was miserable. The culture of the office, like it was just not fun. I'm like looking at the guy in the corner office on the 30th floor in this building in Portland. And I'm like, that guy looks so unhappy. So if I stick here for 30 years, work my butt off, then I get to be the unhappy guy in the corner office that like never gets to see his kids. So anyways, I left that, started a marketing company and did that for 6 years. And I had no business experience. I didn't know how to run a business, but I learned so much. And I would say entrepreneurism is like the best like self-improvement program that you can sign up for. It's grueling. It's tough. I had to learn sales, marketing, everything. And then I wasn't making much money because knowing now, I was charging like a third or a fifth of what I should have been for a marketing company. And we had 8 employees at the time that were all mid 20-year-olds just working our tails off, working, 60, 70 hours a week and making $30,000 a year. Mm-hmm. We had so much fun, but I ended up having to take a job. I just was looking one day for like a real job that I could make a better living in. And I stumbled across Webfoot painting. And so I had all this marketing knowledge. They hired me as a marketing manager and, I dove in. I had all this 6 years of knowledge in marketing and then still the engineering side of me that I definitely think like an engineer. And that led me to Webfoot. And I was there for 3 years. I helped grow their business and doubled in size from like a roughly 10 to 20 million and scaled new concrete coating services for them. And I had all this unbelievable opportunity at a relatively young age for a marketing manager that hadn't worked in painting before. Mm-hmm. But it was because I had 6 years of literally doing every aspect of running a marketing company for, 25 different businesses that we worked with at the time. And so anyways, that died. I was at Webfoot. And in the process of being at Webfoot, I automated so much of the business. And that is where we get to today. About 2.5 years ago, I worked out an arrangement with the owners of Webfoot to transition out of that job. I helped hire the replacement for me as the marketing director there. And then now I do automation consulting and implementation for painting companies. So that was maybe circle. The 5-minute version, but that's how I got to where I am.
I mean, I think it's important. I mean, one of the things you're on PaintScout X, and we don't get into the background so much of why people have authority in the space because we just don't have the time for that. So I think it's great to understand it and to put those two things together is really helpful to understand. Like, there's a lot of people that do marketing in the painting space that unfortunately don't have the type of chops that you have, right? Like they've never actually really done it. It's kind of like, oh, this seems like a good space for me to market into, but I don't actually know the space. And so it's just helpful to get the lay of that land for you. And I think it's helpful for our discussion, which hopefully will help a few people here, which, for me, really, it's about picking your brain about the future here. And, you work on automation, Boolean automation and review. And I think I'd love to get some insights just for, the listeners to maybe they're at a place right now where they are thinking about automation or they've done a little bit of automation and maybe, it was overwhelming to them.
Yep.
Or maybe they're like, this is going to be overwhelming for me. So let's maybe dive into that. Like, the future here of the painting industry, do you think it's, everyone running one person, administration with everything being automated, or what do you see?
Yeah. So I'll start with when people say the word automation, I think there's an interesting thing that I have come to realize in talking to business owners. And AI is another one of these things that when people hear AI, they now are thinking that things that automation was doing and has been doing for 10 to 15 years, the masses are now like, ooh, AI can like help draft an email for me or whatever. But AI is doing more than automation has been in the last 10 to 15 years. But I also would add in a third word, and that's integration. So I feel like the reality is that integration, automation, and AI are kind of all the same thing, and they just are different levels of awareness in the population. And I would say that what that thing is that we're talking about is eliminating the mundane, boring, mindless, repetitive tasks in a business. That's like what at the core people are talking about eliminating.
It's funny how we have to come up with these like really like sexy business words that nobody understands just to say that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I feel like everybody has known for a long time, like, man, this is like, I do this task literally 100 times a week. And then only now, this is my opinion, now that there's AI and artificial intelligence and we have Chat GPT, people are suddenly like, I wonder if I could get rid of doing that. But it's like people and smart businesses, big corporations have been eliminating repetitive tasks for 25 years, ever since computers came out, you know? And so it's just different evolutions of it. And I would say that currently with AI, yes, you are able to do more than you could historically. And actually, I would say maybe not even more. You are just able to like achieve stuff that would have taken, 100 hours to program can now be done in 15 minutes, right?
Right.
And that's what AI is doing, is just making it like that thing that's like 1% of 1% of businesses did 15 years ago that cost them, a couple $1 million to solve, can now be solved by a solopreneur with a $20 ChatGPT subscription. Like it's that level of stuff so at the end of the day, the future and where businesses are heading is like, how do we do more with less? How do we do more marketing with less marketing spend? How do we get more leads with less spend? How do we, do more revenue with less overhead, do more revenue per sales rep? It's like the same story that's been happening since the beginning of time in human history. Is we're trying to be more efficient and we're trying to be, more capable and leverage the tools. And I would even, this is getting maybe too theoretical or meta, but it's like, it's the same thing like with farming equipment, right? Like as humans, we're like, man, it takes me a long time to plow this garden. Like, how am I going to plow an acre or 100 acres or what? And it's like, what if we had a bigger tractor or a plow or, and all these things are just, it's the same thing that we've been doing forever. And yes, the goal is a painting business that is run with the fewest number of people. Like and is that one? Is it zero? Like we're trying to get to, it runs with 0 people. And I think, realistically, I guess the way I think about it, we have to end up getting there at some point. But I think that's a quote unquote long time from now. But to me, it's like, why not try to continue to advance in that direction? Because what's the alternative? Like I'm like, no, that's never going to happen. I'm going to keep all 5 people that other companies are eliminating. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how
the alternative is that like we go, we fight it and we're like, you know what, I'm going to get 5 more people on my staff. So, because I don't like computers. I don't like doing less work. I want to do more, which I think is that's a crazy idea. So I think you're right. So maybe we can dive into a little bit here, just because I want to make sure we try to, get the
tactical.
We had a guy the other day, he said, I'm a cow and you're here to milk me. And I was like, what? I don't understand what that means. Like a staff member, but I feel like that might be relevant. Let's figure out where the milk is in the conversation.
Wait, was this on a podcast?
No, this was a guy that worked at the painting company.
The guest is like, I have so much milk inside my brain, and your job is to milk it out.
You got to milk the cow. So, let's look at this from a sales perspective.
So,
right?
Michaela, I just want to say, did you not hear that joke that just happened? John's funny. He's lighthearted.
Exactly. So I think in order to figure this out, let's look at it from a sales perspective, and maybe you can share just like a couple of your favorite, automations for sales. Like what do you see out there that you think is cool that we could share with people?
Yeah, I would say I'm going to start with because I think with every automation, you should think one of the things you should ask yourself before doing it is, how often am I going to use this? Because there are really cool things that are possible, but at the same time, it's like, is this worth the time to make to solve this problem? So I say that first because this first one I'm going to tell you about is silly, but I think it's so cool. That's just I want to use this because if this took me an hour, let's say, which is probably accurate to how long this took me to solve in today's world, in the future, you might be able to do this in 5 minutes, or you could even just ask AI, I want this to happen anytime I say X. So do this. And what that is, so on my phone, and I should have planned ahead, but basically I can say, hey Siri, I'm running late. And then what happens on my screen is there's a interface, and this is with Siri shortcuts that pops up, and it just says done. So it's hard to show my phone right now, but it just says done. And what happened was that triggered Siri shortcut to go look at my calendar and find out what's the next event that's on my calendar that has either started, or it's the way I do it is the next event the next ending of an event. So like if I'm late to an appointment, I want to know you have an appointment that ends in 50 minutes that started 10 minutes ago, and I need to text that one or whatever. So what it does is it goes and looks at my calendar, grabs the information of that client, their phone number, their email off of the calendar event, grabs my current location, looks at the address on that calendar event, calculates the distance between where I am now and where like driving time to that appointment. And then it texts the contact and says, hey, John, this is Chris. Just want to let you know I'll be there in 25 minutes. So sorry, I'm running late. Or 17 minutes or 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is, because it's calculating that knowledge that it has. So again, if you're a sales rep, I made a YouTube video on this particular thing. Cool. So like if you're nerdy like me and you want to do that, you can go solve this. But the reason I bring that up is like, first of all, I've talked to sales reps that you're doing multiple appointments, you're driving down the road, shouldn't be texting and driving until we have self-driving cars. Then you can work on your computer or sleep or whatever. But in the meantime, like finding ways to just like that to me is a fantastic example of, we don't even realize as humans, if I was going to send John a text, the calculations that I just did in a split second in my head, those are all things that can be programmed and you can tell a computer to do for you. And now you can say, you know, like I find my current location, where am I heading? What's the contact number? And then what's the message that I want to say? And so you can turn that, it's called a 5-minute text, and like thinking I would have had to do, into 5 seconds, and I just keep driving, you know?
So is that done through like the Apple interface, or is that done through Zapier? How are you doing that?
Yeah. So it starts out with Siri, or to invoke Siri, you use Siri shortcuts, and then basically it sends a webhook to Zapier. Okay. And then all the like number crunching and compiling and texting that happens in Zapier. So I'm just using it to extract like the location information and then the kickoff of the automation. And then once that, to me, honestly, is like, for those of you, this is pretty deep and nerdy, but for those of you that understand webhooks, when I realized that you could initiate webhooks from just saying something to Siri, I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. Because you can basically think about anything that you do in Zapier, you could initiate from a simple prompt with Siri.
Oh, very interesting. So this, I mean, yeah, if you're a sales rep watching, I mean, this is super helpful. Like you said, no texting when you're driving, and this happens all the time. So yeah, definitely for those listening, check out that video, and maybe we'll put a link in.
Yeah, I'll do that. And I was going to say, the one thing I got off on this tangent, I'm excited about this, but this is an example for those of you. I would appreciate if some of you were listening and be like, that's so stupid. Like that's going to get used. I'm never late. You know, I don't have to text people. It's like, all right, or I'm late once a month, which is why I would say, if you're going to spend time, this is like what I get to do all the time, is make up crazy scenarios and then see if it's possible to automate. That's what I love. So like in this scenario, if I was a business owner, that probably wouldn't been automation number one that I would solve, right? Because it's not that useful. Right. More useful ones, I would say, are like, this is probably the number one, and this is a core. We don't really have a cool name for this yet. Maybe we'll come up with something. But like a core automation that I think every client should have is an estimate booking automation. So when I book an estimate, make a list of everything that happens from the moment that your CSR, or maybe you book your own estimates, whatever it is. I'm talking to a customer and they say, come to my house at Tuesday at 4:00. So from the moment that we agree on a time to the moment that I go to their house and give them a quote, make a list of every single thing that needs to happen between those 2 points. And I would say you probably end up with somewhere between 6 and 10 things. And these are simple things like a confirmation email or text, a calendar event gets created, a reminder email and a text, maybe some informational content that you send to the customer, a company cam project getting created so you can store photos in there, a PaintScout quote getting created with the right template chosen, a deal in your CRM, a contact in your CRM. It's like, just start it's like break it down into bite-sized pieces. And then to tell you that all of those things, you can automate all of that at a single point of data entry. So when your CSR says submit, book the call for 4 on Tuesday, all of that other stuff is either completed or scheduled to be completed in the next 5 to 7 days or whatever it is. And you just saved, I don't know, conservatively 15 minutes of somebody's time between, like, for every time you book an estimate. And that's like, I would say, a really, really popular one that I can say, if you are a painting company, what I just told you will save you 15 minutes on every estimate if you go like plan that out.
It's insane. Yeah, once we implemented that, it was crazy. Because I mean, like working at Webfoot, as I'm sure you know, processing leads becomes
Huge.
a massive deal, and so all of this stuff matters. And I think if you're a smaller kind of shop or smaller contractor, thinking about that problem in this way is just going to give you so much more time.
Yeah.
And time is really the problem, I think, for most people. So very cool.
Well, the other thing I would say is in general, when you are talking about automating anything, I think you have to come from a place of like, when I free up my time, well, or maybe a higher level would be like, what are the projects or problems that need to have somebody's attention or time focused on to solve them well? And like, if you can identify what those are, that's good to know, first of all. And those are going to change as your business scales. But if you're freeing up your time, I will say legitimately, and this is through my own self-reflection and journaling, there are many things that I know I should not do as a business owner. Like, this is not worth my time, but I do them because if I'm good at it, first of all, and there's this like fleeting sense of accomplishment that I get from being like, "Ooh, I just did 15 things today."
Yeah.
But it's like, Chris, the one thing that you should have worked on that probably would have taken 4 hours of your day is your strategic plan on how you're going to get to wherever you're going to get in the next 3 years. And you didn't spend an ounce of energy on it. And instead you just, replied to emails, and I was like, yay, I got through 60 emails today or whatever. And I think it's important to acknowledge that as business owners, when we free up time for ourselves or for our people, you need to make sure that you have abundant clarity on where is this extra time I'm getting going to be applied or redirected. Because if you don't have an intention, you're going to free up your time and then you're just going to fill it with the low friction stuff that you're good at, that is urgent, but not important at all.
I'll add to that a little bit too, because I think we have two types of viewers on the podcast. One is, business owners, sales managers, and the other is actual like people who are passionate and successful sales reps, or who want to be. And I think even for that second individual, like if you are a sales rep and you're trying to make your time effective, thinking about it in that way it's the same thought process. I would imagine, right? Like you have a limited amount of time to do estimates. You have a limited amount of time to sell. So you want to make that the highest value time you can, and allow that, like if some of this automation, like thinking about automation can change the game for you as a sales rep as well.
Yeah. And so let's dive, I think you asked like, what are the top automations? I gave 2 so far. The second one is like high value.
Yeah.
Another one, well, before I say number 3, I would say, building off of what you just said, when you look at what does it take to sell a painting project, I believe that you have to look at your sales reps and say, the most valuable thing that this sales human can do is talk to people in person, talk to them on the phone so I can hear their voice, or like learn more about the craft, right? Like, to me, those are the 3 things that we should maximize how much time all of your sales reps are interfacing with humans and learning how to become better at sales or better painting or more knowledgeable in painting. Like, those are the things. If they do those, and that's it. That's like 80% of their time was there. You will have a world-class sales team. And so you then look at, all right, everybody, I want you to keep track of where are the hours in the day going. And this is where it gets interesting, because I would say if you talk to most sales reps, they tell you that they spend a ton of time like managing their pipeline or whatever that means. Yeah. And it's like, I get yes, you still are going to manage your pipeline, but I think that there's a lot of creep that just fills into that bucket. And a lot of it is manual data entry. So like, I create the quote in PaintScout and I want to, get all that information from the quote into my CRM. If you architect your automations right, the sales rep literally builds it, sends it to the customer, and then goes to the next bid. And then all the information is updated and automatically stored inside the CRM. And that's the third automation I would say is, we call it the bid sent automation, which is just the trigger is when I send the bid, I want a bunch of stuff to happen. And so now they're pipeline is up to date. And then the only thing that they need to do is schedule an hour of their day every day for follow-up. And so because in that bid sent automation, at least the way I like doing it, and again, what makes sense for you is going to depend on how do you want to run your sales team. We were just talking about this before, John. There, I will put in a plug. If you haven't listened to the last, I don't know if it's the most recent or like within the last 3 episodes, the sales follow-up podcast that you and Michael did.
Yeah.
Really, really good. And I would say, make your map and plan of what is the perfect sales follow-up process to close a client. And what does that look like? And identify that before you do this bid sent automation that I'm talking about. Because if you don't, I would say a really common issue that I see painting companies or painting estimators make is that we're bombarded with all these cool, fancy, shiny objects that are softwares and AI tools and things that are going to make our lives easier. And the worst thing you could do is see a demo, sign up for it, and be like, this is amazing. The guy said I'm going to save so much time. And then get back to your business and be like, okay, here's all the features. Let's figure out how to build a process that uses these, right? Instead of, the right way of doing it is technology needs to serve the master, so to speak. The master is you, and you have to define what do you want your business to do and how do you want it to function, and make a plan for that first. And then I like to think of it as like I'm a surgeon, just like placing the automations in the exact right points of where I want this. Because the sales process is probably, of all the processes in the business, is the part where I would say you need to be extremely intentional about where you keep human interaction, because there's opportunities to remove human interaction everywhere. But I think good sales teams and companies are very intentional about, I want to make sure that my sales rep has these 3 touch points. And then there's a bunch of other stuff that needs to happen as well. So let's automate everything else, but we need to make sure that all those automations serve those 3 touch points so that they can focus their energy on talking to more people.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talked about this beforehand that, like, ultimately when you have somebody at your home or your property, trust is such a major factor. And it's a big, usually it's got to be a person to person thing. Sometimes you can get away with it just by reputation, but somebody has to know there's somebody there to go to when, stuff doesn't go right. Or, if they're going to give you money as a deposit, they got to know you're real. You're not just going to run away with it. So I think what you're saying is so true, where we need to know those points that are critical to automation, but not take away the human element. Because what's interesting, Chris, and we haven't really talked about this before, but when we look at win rates on estimates, the really important factors are the speed to which is the estimate's delivered and the speed to which it's either followed up on personally. And it's rare, we see it very rare that estimates get accepted from automated follow-ups. I think it's kind of a bit of a misnomer out there. At least people are trying to pump the idea that, automated follow-ups are what closed the deal. And so it's interesting to evaluate this, to be like, why is everybody saying that this is the case? Like, it just can't be, because the data doesn't support it. But 2, over automation on this can actually affect you in a negative way. Can affect your win rate in a negative way.
And
so,
sorry, to clarify, I had to stand up for the last part of this because I'm getting excited about something. But what was the first thing that you said? Was the misconception is what?
So the misconception is that we can send an estimate and then it'll get closed, or you win the customer over through follow-up, automated follow-up. Like, I can just email them and text them to death, and eventually they're going to say, yeah, I want to work with you.
Yep.
And actually, it's kind of inverse sometimes, the correlation. You start to really piss people off if you don't do it right. I don't know. That's what I see. Tell me what your thoughts are.
Yeah. So I would say that I love that you brought that up, because the idea, first of all, like, I love when people say, like, I don't want to piss off my customers or something. Like I don't want to, be pushy or whatever. And I would say, first of all, let's define what pissed off means.
Sure.
Like, if you're going to use that term, can you tell me what is a pissed off customer look like? What are they saying to you? Because to clarify, when someone's like, I've got like 6 texts from you, like, can you, like, this is kind of annoying. That's not a pissed off customer, right? No, I don't think so. No. And the other thing is, like, a pissed off customer is like, how dare you? I unsubscribed 16 times. I'm going to sue you. Like, I'm going to tell everybody not to use. Like, that's a pissed off customer to me.
Yeah.
And those are unicorns that you rarely come across. Someone being like, hey, sorry, I didn't get back to you. You don't need to call me anymore because we went with somebody else. or like, hey, I told you this last time and I got another message, but or like the little like there's like a sweet spot, and I would say you want not automation, but it's mixed. So I'm going to say follow up is whether it's a sales rep or automation combined. That is follow up.
Yep.
You want a decent amount of follow-up and a high cadence that can be unsubscribed to or stopped by the customer whenever they want. But don't assume that a customer doesn't want a lot of follow-up. Like, it's just crazy to me that that the idea of like, oh, I'm going to let them reach out to us in a week when they're ready. If you didn't say, if you set that agreement and they're going on vacation and they said, hey, I'll call you. And you're like, all right, what day, what time? When is that? Okay, I'll make a note.
Yep.
And then if they don't call you 5 minutes after they said they would, I would call them. Be like, hey, I know you said you're going to call today. But again, it's like, this is another thing you mentioned in that follow-up podcast episode, is I think the follow-up process needs to be a mixture of phone calls from real people, your estimators, text messages that could be sent manually or automated from a rep, and emails. And all three of those, it's just like a recipe. If you just, if you're trying to make a cake and you're only going to use sugar because sugar is sweet and you love sugar, and you just remove all the flour and water, it's like it's all necessary. So thinking that we have to do like in the same way, I'm trying to think of the text, email, and call, which one's sugar, water, and flour. But if you take all the flour out or all the water or whatever, it still doesn't work. You need a mixture of all of it. And so if someone's like, I hate technology, I'm just going to have my sales reps do everything manually. I mean, I just don't think it's as good as if you used a mixture of it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's like, but the thought process though behind this is what's key. And I think you alluded to that in that point of saying like, once you send the estimate, what happens? And I think that there is also this idea out there that you can just let the text and email do the work. And I think really it's that personal touch that still matters to people. It's got to be sprinkled in, right? Like, and so I think you can, like, I think you mentioned somebody to me before the call, just like they send the estimate out and they just like hide, they're like, oh my goodness, I hope they like my price. I hope they go with me. And I'll send them 5 emails being like, are you going to go ahead? Are you going to go ahead? Well, that's not a conversation. Like, that's just you being, maybe poor at business.
Yeah. Well, so, the other thing that this person had said was they basically like to ask, they were hesitant to put any automation in on the sales follow-up because all their clients want different things. And I thought that was interesting too, because I do want to like work with the client, but I don't want the client to dictate how the follow-up goes. Like if, I don't know if you think this, but they were literally saying like, they say, what would you like to do next or something like that? Which is kind of, I don't want to get too nitpicky, but my preference would be like, all right, so here's the price that I was able to give you on the spot because I used this really sweet estimating tool called PaintScout and I made it right here.
Yeah.
Here it is. Talk to your spouse or whatever. And then, I think, I can't remember if this was on your podcast or not, but if you find out that the spouse isn't there, was it you guys that said, find out if you can come back later that evening to go over the price with them in person?
I don't know. That's never been my theory. Maybe Michael, but
and so I was going to say I want to leave room. Like there are opportunities here. The price is the thing that's the valuable thing. So when you give it, can be strategically placed. Maybe you decide not to give it on the spot because they're both not present. I'm in support of that. But I also would say I like the idea.
That was Russell, who was just on the podcast.
He's the one that said it.
Yeah. So you like the idea? Sorry.
So I like the idea of basically deciding when the right time to give the price is. But whenever you give that price, I think it's the salesman's job to say, so here's how we typically, like, here's what I can recommend. You take some time. You said you had a couple other bids. I'll reach out to you in a week. Do you have a preference on the day or time that I call you? And just like be more directive in your suggestions as opposed to like, or even saying like, so after this, because I know you're busy, everyone's got a lot of stuff going on. We have a few automated messages that you'll get to just, check in. Feel free to reply to any of those. They come directly to me and I can hop on a call with you or something like that is fine. I also would say, even as I said that, I don't like saying they're automated messages that you're going to get because then, as you're just like telling the person, oh, so I don't need to reply to any of those. I'll just wait for you to call me.
Yeah.
I like saying, I'm going to revise what I just said there is, so what I typically do is I'll text people 2 or 3 days from now and just see if you, as you've been looking this and looking at other quotes, if you had any questions, let me know. And then I'll call you on like a week from now. And then, if I don't hear from you, I'll probably reach out again because, I just want to help you make the right decision. But I do think that it is okay to preface that, like, how I typically work is I will reach out and I'm going to be proactive. If you guys get to a decision, whether it's yes or no, just let me know whenever that happens. Like that's the goal. But I would say that's my recommendation, as opposed to like, how would you like, what do you want to do next? Where should we go from here, John? It's like, I don't know. Like, I feel like there should be some guiding of the client.
Absolutely. I mean, we in our sales process, it's all about the customer is not the expert in our field. And so therefore we need to guide the conversation in order to help them.
Yeah.
It's all about helping them get to a decision. And so I totally agree with you on that. Now I know we have a few more bits kind of left here. So I think you got maybe two more favorite automations we could maybe cover quickly.
Yeah. So the other big one that I would say is, as far as reviews go, so that as people that follow Boolean know, Boolean has a reputation management review software. And we actually just went through a revamp. We have 3 clients that are still on our legacy system, and other, like they're literally getting moved over today. So our old system is getting killed, and we have a new fancy interface and tracking and everything that exists. One of the things that I was adamant that our new system had was a way better integrations, because I'm a big fan of integrations these days.
Really? You're a fan of integrations?
I'm a big fan, yes. I told Natalie, who's managing our product, I said, I want to have the most integratable and like triggerable software for reviews ever. So like anything related to reviews, I want to be able to send webhooks and receive and update information in our CRM, all that stuff. And that's what we're not, that's our North Star. That's what I want to get to. And so we're adding in those things. But the reason I bring that up is because the automation that I think everybody should implement, is asking for reviews after you do the estimate. So asking for feedback on how the estimate went. So, if you're a good sales rep, you're closing 50% maybe. Most people are probably around 40, 45% of the bids that you go on that decide to work with you. And this is my engineering side. This was when I was at Webfoot, I had this realization of like, so I'm paying like at the time, I think it was like $120 a lead or something like that. And in certain seasons, obviously it varies greatly. But at this one time we were having this meeting, like I'm paying over $100 for a person, for us to send someone's time and drive and gas money and all this stuff to an estimate. And 60% of them are saying, nah, and then they go with somebody else. And we never do anything with them ever again. Like we have their email, but like, what are we doing with those people? And somebody's idea, it was not mine, but I was like, we should try this. Well, why don't we ask them like to just rate the estimate process? Like, how was the presentation? Was it educational? What did you like about it? Just rate our estimator on a scale from 1 to 5 and send them to your Google page. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know, like that seems kind of weird. People are just gonna be like, why are you asking me to review your business? I didn't even work with you. But it was like a mindset shift of, they did actually work with us. We didn't charge them anything, but they got so much value from our estimator coming up, educating them, telling them about all the stuff they didn't know about their house. And it turns out people are very willing to tell you and leave you 5-star reviews. And this isn't like trickery. They say in their review, like, their estimate was super professional. I don't know if I'm going to use them yet, but 5 stars. Yep. And then like we all of a sudden started getting, it was probably between 5 and 10% of our estimates started leaving us 5-star reviews. And we never had, I think there was one time we had 12 estimators. So there was a lot of these. There's one time where an estimator got like a 1-star review, and you go in and read it. And it was like, I waited at my house, no one showed up. And, we're like, oh my gosh. So that triggered a whole process inside the business. Find out that this person's house was like in the middle of nowhere. They had no cell service. The estimator had driven out there and gotten lost and like was looking, and then had to drive back 30 minutes into town, and they had another appointment coming up. So, and it was just like a, crazy scenario, but we can explain that in the review or in the response. And the next customer is not going to be like, oh, I'm discrediting all 800 5-star reviews because one person said that they had a no-show, especially when the business explains what happened. So anyways, that's the other big one is ask for reviews after your estimates. And if that's intriguing, again, because I'm a knowledge sharer, there's a video on our YouTube channel of how you can do it yourself. But
Awesome.
our Boolean system is also capable of integrating with PaintScout. So when you send a quote, the Boolean software can, ask for a review 24 hours later, 48 hours later, or whatever.
Dude, that's amazing. Yeah, such a great thing to remember that. And for everyone listening, just that there's many points in the process that you can get a review.
Yes.
I mean, some of the bad reviews that we've had at our painting company have been like, they were driving too fast. And it's like, if someone can leave us a review for driving too fast, why can't someone leave us a review for being like they were a great driver?
Yeah, that's actually a great point. Rate my driving. Here's my
rate my driving. Yeah,
listen.
exactly. Now that might be, I mean, that's a little far because there's just crazy people on the road. But overall, like that idea of like it can be at the estimate, it could be at you could be at a trade show, you can be anywhere. Yeah. And Google review rules are such that it just has to be
it's
a person
intern with the business.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's very insightful, Chris.
It's kind of like, use the analogy of a restaurant. It's like, are you only allowed, like if a customer comes in and just like has, like if they eat a meal, they can leave you a review. Mm-hmm. What if they just have an appetizer? What if they just order a drink? What if they just have water? Like can any of those people, they interacted with people in your business.
Exactly.
And they can tell Google, these guys were great or they weren't, What if they just use your bathroom? Someone comes in like, hey, you could use our bathroom. Would you mind leaving a review? That's all allowed.
And I think though, to your point about automating that too is important. Like making sure that it's like something you're not having to think about where you're like at the estimate, you're like, can you please like rate me and give me a review? I mean, you might be able to say that, it might be helpful, but overall it's just like that process.
Yes.
Thinking about what's good for the customer and how it works. So
yeah,
Chris, I want to get to number 5 and we got to wrap things up, unfortunately. So we're going to leave it on a cliffhanger. Ooh. So for next time when we have you back, we're going to start with the last one. How about that?
That sounds
we'll
great.
Move on so people tune in again. But hey, man, it's always a pleasure chatting with you. This is fun. I know I get inspired when I'm talking to you about this because it brings to light so many things that I need to do and think about differently. So thank you. Thanks for bringing that insight.
Absolutely.
To this podcast and our listeners.
It's been fun. And I look forward to many more conversations. As anyone that's listening, if you're a PaintScout user or you're considering using PaintScout, I will I'm going to tell you this, John, and then you're going to get super competitive and go like make a bunch more videos, but why not have some competition?
Yeah, absolutely.
I looked and we have a YouTube video that is, I think it's like automatically create PaintScout quotes is the title of it.
Yeah.
And I want to say that it's the second, it had whatever the review count was, we can look this up afterwards. And the people listening, you can to see who wins in months from now. But there's only one video on your channel that has more views than that video, if that makes sense. So anyways, I only say that to say we were like, someone pointed it out to me. I was like, sweet, we almost have the highest viewed video on the term PaintScout on YouTube. But you still have one video that's better. But the thing that's funny about that is that it's a very sought after topic of how do I automatically make a quote? So I don't have to, I can put in the numbers, but I just want the template to be selected for me. Yeah. So if you're a PaintScout user, that's one video you can go look at that's popular, but we've got dozens of videos on our YouTube channel that are automating things related to PaintScout in addition to 100 other, painting related stuff. But big fans of PaintScout. You guys have a great tool and we love working with you guys.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate your time. And for those who are listening along, like the podcast, subscribe, and maybe we'll make some more. So Chris, thanks very much, man. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Yeah.
This podcast is proudly powered by PaintScout, your partner in painting success.